Okay, let's see some sample paragraphs from structure A of the integrated essay. Remember that this structure is the more important structure, usually the better structure, that you'll probably use on your test on test day. Because it's integrated, we need our sample text and lecture. We're going to use the same official text and lecture that we used for the sample intro paragraph in the previous lesson on the introduction paragraph from Quick Prep Volume 3. And that text is on page 21 of the PDF, and the listening, the lecture, is track 11 on the website. Those are linked below, as always. Take a moment to go read and listen, and when you're finished, come back to this video to see our sample paragraphs. Okay, so let's remember the pieces of a body paragraph specific to this structure. First, you'll introduce a point. This might be the first point from the lecture, or it could be the first point from the reading. But one of the main ideas from the two will be the first thing that you bring up in your body paragraph. Then, you're going to paraphrase the professor's point. After that, you'll contrast it with the reading, and possibly give some extra detail on the professor's point. You might change the order of these. It might not be 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe you'll change it to 1, 2, 3, 4 or something else. But these are the main pieces of the first body paragraph from structure A. Let's see the sample. First, the professor refutes the idea that the Chevalier was poor. Okay, what does this do? This is an introduction to the idea, the point, that the professor makes. The Chevalier was poor in the text, but the professor says, no, actually he wasn't. She states that he was actually wealthy, but his wealth was in property. Okay, this gives us a little bit more detail about the lecturer, the professor's specific ideas. The professor says more than the Chevalier was not poor. She says that his wealth was in property. This gives the professor's specific ideas, specific details. Although the passage uses his loans as a sign of poverty, the professor believes they were only necessary because the Chevalier needed time to convert his property to cash. Now we have our contrast. Although, and we see the passage, the reading, compared with the lecture here. You're going to need one sentence at least that does this, that contrasts the reading and the lecture. So the reading says that his loans, borrowing money, are a sign of poverty, being poor. But the listening, the lecture, tells us that they were not from poverty. They were only necessary because he needed time to change his land to cash money. All right, once we're finished with that paragraph, we'll move on to our second body paragraph. This will have all the same main pieces as the first body paragraph. We need an introduction to the lecturer's ideas. Then we have some detail, some contrast with the reading, and possibly a little bit more detail. Take a moment to read this paragraph here. You can pause the video, and then we'll talk about what sentence does what role. Okay, so the lecturer, the professor, says that the Chevalier's conversations with Voltaire were probably based on notes. This gives us some very specific detail, actually, but that detail acts as an introduction to the topic. Notice you can combine purposes. This is an introduction and detail together in one. The next sentence gives us a little bit more detail. We still don't have the contrast. We are only looking at the lecture here. So again, we have a different order. After that, we get the contrast with although, the reading, and the professor, which shows the difference between the two. But when this is finished, this sentence ends the paragraph. We have no more detail. All of our detail was in these 3 sentences. That's perfectly okay and absolutely possible. What we have, what's important, is the professor's opinions, the professor's facts, the professor's idea, with details, and we have a contrast with the reading. In some cases, you would have a comparison. Because all 3 are here, the professor's idea, the details, and the contrast, this is a totally okay body paragraph, even though the order is a little bit different. Well, you know the next points from the lecture. Try writing your own body paragraph, which explains those points and contrasts with the reading. Thank you for listening.